Hello, everyone, and welcome to another tournament review here at PMTT. This time I am joined by Tim, who recently went undefeated at our Gauntlet Round 9 event down at Irresistible Force in Burleigh. But before we get into talking with Tim, a quick shout out to the rest of the players that did well at the most recent round of the Gauntlet. Paddy managed to take it out overall in first place with his Iron Jaws. Dave managed a solid second place with his IDK. And Tim stole third spot with his Fyreslayers. All three of those guys going undefeated, so massive congratulations to all three of you. In addition to those guys, we also had Jono taking out the best painted with his Magic Hint of Nurgle, and Geordie got voted best sports with his Beasts of Chaos. But rather than talk about the rest of those guys, I'm joined with Tim. Tim, how you going tonight?
Good man, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. So, how these interviews usually work, I know you've watched a couple of them already, is we start out by figuring out how you got into the hobby. Now, you're a bit of a special case because I've known you for quite a long time because we used to play War Machine against each other.
Yes.
But I've never actually heard how you actually got into the hobby to begin with. So, walk us through that.
Well, sort of a bit like unlike most people, where they seem to sort of get in at a very young age. I was quite old. I'd finished uni by that point. I was probably 22, so I'd say about 2011. I first got in, and it was sort of just by chance, really. I went up to a mate's place just to go watch a game, go to Suncorp Stadium and watch a game of footy, and then
Hmm.
they're all sitting there around the gaming table having some beers and playing some Warhammer 40k, and I was like, "Ooh, this looks pretty interesting." So I sat and watched the game, and it got me hooked from that point. And it was about fifth edition 40k, and
Yep.
the rest is history.
Oh yeah, that's how it usually goes. Like it only takes one kind of brief introduction, and a lot of people are absolutely hooked. So you started with 40k, and then you switched to War Machine. I know,
Yep.
and now you've switched to AOS. What was the reasoning behind switching between the different games? What kind of made you change it all up?
So I played 40k just as a sort of beer and petzels sort of game initially. And then I started to come, and we moved from the mate's garage over to GW Macrobat. And we sort of started to get a bit more competitive, and we started to go to some tournaments and stuff like that,
Yep,
and
yep.
scratching that competitive itch. And it just wasn't quite as balanced as we wanted it to be, or quite a tippy top competitive. And so we saw the War Machine scene sort of growing, and sort of got hooked in a bit onto that. So that was probably 2014. I got hooked into that. And yeah, like we played together a lot in War Machine, try and
Mhm.
at the sort of top of competitiveness as we did, and played that until probably about 2017. I was running the tournaments with yourself as well, for War Machine, but then I was going hard out. I was playing 3-4 games a week, a
Mm.
tournament a month, and
Yep.
I was just starting to get burnt. So by the end of 2017, my wife and I had our first child, and then we just found out we were about to have our second. So I was like, okay, we got to ease back a bit. So
Yep.
easing back turned into me not playing for 4-5 years until only about 12 months ago, where I got back into it, into AOS.
Oh, yep. Yeah, very nice. Because I know when you got out of the hobby, you sold off a lot of your stuff, and I know that I actually have your airbrush, um,
Yes.
which is getting a lot of use at the moment, and you're not getting it back. So, and I'm pretty sure I got it for an absolute steal as well.
You did.
So,
You did.
um, but you recently went undefeated at the most recent Gauntlet. So walk us through your army and your strategies behind it. So you were playing Fyreslayers.
Yes.
What was the thoughts behind the list?
The thought behind the list was, this is what I have painted.
Yep.
So that was the that was the first criteria. So I'm only I when I initially got in, I started with ogres, and I swapped around as most people do, and to
Mm.
try and find an army that I really enjoyed. And I only found Fyreslayers just after their newest book, so I haven't really had a whole lot of time getting them painted up. So a lot of my list was what I had sort of painted,
Yep.
but I was playing like a Lofnir kind of list, and
Mm.
I tend to like lists that bunker up and want people to come and attack me.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay.
I like to do.
Yeah. Okay. So what was in the list?
So I was running Lofnir, so the Magmadroth one, but I was running 2 units of Hearthguard Berserkers as
Yep.
well, with and then three uh, sons on Droths, and then a smattering of heroes. So a father on foot, a the Rune Smiter, the Tunnel Guy, and then I had an allied in Rune Lord from Cities of Sigmar to deal with that pesky purple sun.
Yep. Oh yeah, you need a plan for that. So, yeah, so kind of a more balanced list than
Yeah,
what some of the other armies that are out there at the moment, kind of mixing in the droths with the infantry and the smattering heroes as well.
yeah, yeah. It's a little less taxing on the brain when you play it. It's a little simpler, so you can concentrate on other things. And
Yeah. Yeah, well, obviously it worked well. You went undefeated. You can't really ask for a better result than that.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so game one was against Nathan with his Nighthorn, and it was head-on collision. Give us a quick crash course. How did that game go down?
So as I do with most of my deployment, I leave my tunnel fella and a magmadroth right to the end to sort of psych out my opponent to see whether I'm going to put it into the ground or not.
Yep.
So I sort of did that with Nathan, and he tried to block out a lot of the back of his board, and I didn't. With the scenario, I didn't really see I needed to do that very
Mm.
much, so it was sort of a bit of a psych out play, and I ended up deploying it, which sort of changed the game a little bit because he was running 40 blade geists, and he sort of ran everything his big bounty hunter unit up the board. I gave him first turn. He ran up onto the center objective
Mm.
and charged into my front line, but Fyreslayers have our command ability on the Hearthguard Berserkers, and I did my strike first on him and took out a good chunk of his unit, which kind of hurt him a bit. Um, and then my Rune Lord, which the sole reason he was brought in was to try and deny that purple sun. He had the auto cast unbindable cast of it, so I was like, oh dang,
Yep.
I can't get rid of it yet. But thankfully, it wasn't in range of anything. And then I had my turn. And then in his next turn, he won priority, um, and I tried to dispel the purple sun, and I had a +3 effectively, and I didn't get rid of it. And
Ah.
he moved it up, and I managed to roll a 1 on the one of the magmadroths. So I was like,
Oh.
oh no, this is not going well. I was feeling fairly good in my position, had sort of good presence in the center of the board, but then I took out a droth, and I was like, oh no, I'm not liking this, because I had to send one back because of his chain rasp he brought up from the ground, and he was going to take my back objectives because in that scenario it's worth 4 points.
Yep.
Um, but then, unfortunately, because he had the way he had deployed his second unit of Blade Geists, because of the potential threat of that Magmadroth coming out of the ground, they sort of didn't really get involved in the game until a bit too late.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I denied the board because I ran the invocation, the firewall, so it denied his movement a bit. So he wasn't able to charge with him, and he only got on the objective. And I got a charge in with one of the Magmadroths, and he didn't roll 4 ups very well, and I managed to take out
Uh,
the entire unit in one activation, and that's sort of
wow. Okay.
sort of all she wrote. Really, I was able to sort of take it out from there. It was only a very close game in the end. I think it was about 6 points or so in it.
Yeah,
3 or
I
6 points
think
in
it
it.
was fairly close. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, well, it sounds like a fantastic game. So it really kind of it sounds like you really made him play your game. He was
Yes.
reacting to you, especially with the threat of the Magnadroth coming up and just kind of psyching him out from the get go.
Yeah, my list very much likes the scenarios where you fight in the center, which this one was. It was a very good scenario for me. I was able to just bunker up in the middle, him come charge me, and I do my damage, which was good.
Yeah, yeah, no, very nice. So you one up. I always hate the first round of a tournament because that's the one I'm always most nervous about. So game two, you got matched up against Aaron, who was running Stormcast. This
Yes.
one was close to the chest as well, so a little bit more spread out than the last round. How'd that game go down?
Yeah, so probably my worst scenario, I guess, of the day. I didn't really like that. To be fair, I didn't really look at the scenarios in the battle back before getting the the list together. And then I came and I'm like, oh no, they're all spread scenarios. I don't like this. So it was a little rough. He was running Bastion, unit of 3-man unit of long strikes, and I think some judicators, a 5-man unit of judicators as well.
Yes.
So he
Yep.
had a lot of what I don't like in shooting, and a lot of like incidental damage where he can just chip wounds away from my magmadroths, and
Mm.
because he can spread so easily and he doesn't really need a castle like me, that's sort of how it went.
Yep. Yeah.
um, and the story really the story of the game was me not being able to make any charges,
Oh.
which was helpful. So I activated this was in around second turn. I activated my movement rune and I managed to enhance it and get +2 charges. And I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to get 3 Magmadroths and a unit of Berserkers in, and oof, it's going to be good.
Yep.
And then I rolled my charge for one of my Magmadroths, and I needed a 5-inch charge, and I rolled double ones, and I was like, okay, we'll re-roll that into a 3-inch, and I was like, oh, okay, this is good. Next Magmadroth fails charge, third Magmadroth gets in, unit of Berserkers fails charge. I'm like, okay, this is not so good.
Oh.
And Aaron was able to capitalize, and I got doubled, and he did a lot of chip wounds and managed to take out all but 5 Berserkers. But the unfortunate thing, Aaron didn't quite move on to the objectives early enough, and that's sort of what underpinned it. I was running away with it on scenario in
Yeah.
the
Okay.
end.
Yeah. Okay. So he kind of like you just kind of got the lead and then just tried to keep on top of him, just keep him on that back foot.
Yeah,
Don't let him
yeah.
really kind of be able to apply his damage really where he needed it to.
Exactly. After that turn where I failed all of the charges where I was going to do the damage, I was like, okay, well, I just got to really just deny him out on scenario at this point, and yeah,
Yeah.
managed to do it.
Yeah. And that's it. It doesn't matter how kill your list is. If you don't hold those scenario points, you're not going to win because
Yep.
that's the primary win condition. So, so you're 2 up at this point, going into round
Yes.
three. Uh, a couple of other players, pretty solid players, are undefeated. So were you nervous going into it, or
Yes. This particular gauntlet had a pretty. It was a bit of a shark tank. I felt we had Scott Wyatt, we had Geordie, we had Dave Kerr, we had Paddy, we had some quite good players, which were all, I believe, all at that time were undefeated. Maybe Scott. I think Scott might have gone down to Geordie the round before,
yeah, I think
but
Scott was 1-1 at this point.
yeah,
But like
but
the rest of them,
yeah. So I was a little nervous who I was getting paired into, and at that point, when we had round 2, we had lunch, so it was a bit of a longer wait between rounds. That one,
just building that tension,
yeah,
building that excitement. So you ended up getting paired against Nicole with her Nighthaunt.
yes,
And this scenario was the Nidus Pard, so really spread out, but
yeah.
with some good teleporting. So how did that one end up?
Well, this one's very good because I play Nicole plays at my store. I play down at IF Burley with Nicole a lot, and it was happened to be we played a league leading up into the recent GoldCon, and this was a rematch from our round 5 of that league, which was kind of cool.
Yep, yep.
So we're basically playing. I had a very minor change to my list, and she had the exact same list. So it was a rematch, and she had some good learnings from that match that we had. Um, and she definitely applied them in this one. So she gave me a tough, really, really tough game. It was.
Mm.
Um,
So what was she
but
running in her list?
so she was running a unit of what are the bell? What's the one with the bell?
Uh,
What's the unit?
Blade Revenants?
Blade Revenants,
Blade
whatever.
Geists?
They
Big sword ghosts.
all look like ghosts.
Yep.
And then she had 3 units of chain rasps, and then she had Yolinda and the other guy that's really killy. I can't remember his name.
Kurdos?
Kurdos, yes,
I
that's the
think
dude.
she
Yeah.
likes Kurdos.
Yeah, and then the -1 damage dude as
Yep.
well, as
Crusaders.
always.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So she kept Yolinda and Kurdos in the sky. Um, so that's exactly what she did last time. But in the last game, when in our league, she didn't bring them down early enough, and she brought them down turn 1 this time,
Yep.
and brought them to bear. She chose different units to put because she was playing Emerald Host, so she put the curse on different unit, and she chose the right units for this one, and
Yeah.
it was devastating. But it really came down to there was a critical point. I think it was turn 2 where she chose the desecrate their lands as her battle tactic, and
Yep.
she had Yolinda and Kurdos on the terrain feature, so she had 4 models and only had 2, and I was like, okay, she's got it. but then she might have had a bit of a brain fart and charged Kurdos off. So then it was
Oh,
2-2. So that cost her the 2 points from at that point. And then there was a critical charge later on from those blade guys. She sort of failed, which again I think it stopped her holding more at that point. So yeah, just a couple of little critical things that
mm,
happened, but it was close. It was devastating, and it was the same with all three of my games. I lost. It's the most models I've lost in games since I've been playing. Like I had nothing left at the end of the games.
yeah. Well, that's
Was
that's what you want. You want those nice close games because they're always
yeah,
so much more fun than just either getting
yeah.
tabled or tabling someone.
And you've played Nicole before. She's so the amazing fun to play
Mm.
against. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like from my perspective, it looked like everyone was having a pretty good time at
Yeah,
this event. So, and I purely put that down to the community. So
yeah,
AOS has a fantastic community, especially down at the coast there. I know Scott's put a lot of work into getting the community as good as it is, and he's doing a great job, an absolutely fantastic
yeah.
job. So it was fantastic to see everyone come out. We had 18 players, so one of the larger gauntlets, which was good. So we had three undefeateds. So you ended up coming in third. So were you happy with your performance on the day, or were you kind of a little bit bummed you only got third despite going undefeated?
We're considering the caliber of people that were coming to this one. I was very happy with it
Yeah.
personally. I was going into the day wanting a 2 of 1. That's what my goal was, and to come out with 3-0 is just cherry on top.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
that's fantastic. So, no, congratulations again.
Thank you.
But one of the other things that I wanted to talk to Tim about tonight was like we met back when we were both playing War Machine. Very different game to AOS. And you were quite a good War Machine player. Like we have been to the Oceanic Team Championships. That's the big Australian team event together. I don't
Yep.
think our teams ever won when we're on the same team. We never won it,
Yeah.
but it was always a fantastic time. But now you've switched over to AOS and you're going undefeated at tournaments now. Um, what is your opinion on kind of what skills can you bring from one game to another? How do you develop kind of that broader range and that broader skill set?
I guess the particular things that I think I've carried from War Machine across to AOS and things that have helped me a lot was when I play, the majority of the time I played, um, War Machine was in Mark II when there was no pre-measuring involved in the game, so it's a lot of
Yeah.
being able to tell distances
Mm.
from your eye. And I find that very, very helpful in AOS, being able to just look at something and see and have a gauge on distance and not reveal to your opponent what you're thinking, because you don't
Yeah. Okay.
getting a tape measure out and measuring a distance from a model to another model when you can sort of eye it and go, okay, yep, sweet, that's 12 inches. I know that guy should be able to charge there or be able to move to here and charge to that point without sort of bringing your plan to your opponent a lot
Yeah.
of the
Okay.
time.
So just like playing that meta game and just kind of keeping everything just that little bit closer to you and not really unveiling what you're doing or letting them
Yeah,
giving them time to think up the counter plays.
yeah, exactly that. And then as well as that, like your War Machine was a clock game where you played Death Clock, and I always practiced on Death Clock, and I one of the things I prided myself on was the speed in which I played, which is sort of carried across into AOS. I'm able to play quite quickly, and 90% of the time I'll finish the round 30, 45 minutes early in AOS now. So
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's a big help.
Yeah, okay. So just trying to like once again, just trying to always keep your opponent on the back foot, like always kind of have the pressure on, and especially with how your Fyreslayers list sounds like it works and how you described it working on the weekend,
Mm.
it very much feels like you've got your plan. You just do your plan. You just do it. You do it. You do it. And the
Yeah.
onus is kind of always on your opponent to react and be able to okay, I've got to deal with this now. I've got to deal with this now. They can't kind of build up and get momentum for what they want to do. Would that be accurate? You reckon?
Yeah, exactly. And having that, and I think it was a conversation you and I had about back in War Machine. You knew your exact first turn Every single spell you would cast, every single movement you do, and everything could go in the same spot. I brought that exact same thing over to AOS. This was back in the previous GHB, not so much in this one, but I had the exact same three battle tactics I'd run for the first three turns, and I'd know exactly how my turn played out.
Yeah.
Pretty much every single time, I knew I was going to achieve three battle tactics. I was going to do these particular things, and it's just yeah,
Yeah, okay. So really just getting the basics down pat, getting it to
yeah,
the point where you're just playing your own game. You know how that game goes,
yeah,
and then you can see how your opponent reacts, and then go from there. So no, that sounds great. Like I definitely would recommend anyone if they see Tim in a tournament to hit him up, say hi, give him a hug. I know he loves them. Um, but yeah, like I know one thing that we go way back, but I know that some of the conversations that we've had over the years have definitely helped, and just getting another person's opinion and just getting the other ideas is a
yeah,
is a foolproof way to get better. I know one thing that we were talking about before we started recording was just the amount of games that you're playing against other really good players.
yeah.
That's another kind of foolproof way to get better. Is you will always learn more from a loss than a win, in my opinion. And so playing other really good players is a really good way to get better and get better quickly. So
Yeah, I played Scotty White twice a week, every week for 8 weeks prior to GoldCon. So I'm used to losing.
yeah, but yeah, that experience of playing against other top players is definitely worth it, especially in my opinion. So are you planning to come to the next round of the Gauntlet? So it would be on the 16th of October up here in Toowoomba at Battle Stations.
Unfortunately, I've only got a certain amount of husband points to spend, and I've cashed all those in for the Runax team champs that are coming out
Yeah,
soon. So I'm unable to make the next PMTT,
that that
which
is that is a
kind of
shame,
sucks.
but
It's very yeah,
completely understandable. Gabe does an absolute fantastic job of running the Runex team champs, so
yeah.
I 100% understand why you've chosen that one over a little one dayer in Toowoomba. So um,
Yeah, and just with the family, it's a bit of a well, Toowoomba's a bit of a trek.
yeah,
So
yeah. So that just means that there's a free spot for someone else to come. So it's the round 10, so it's the last of the open rounds, 16th of October at Battle Stations. So the event should be going up shortly after this video is released. But definitely get in on it. I know for a lot of people, they will be gunning for a spot in that top 8 to get an invite to the finals. And I was doing the calculations yesterday, and there's about 32 people who are in contention. So
mm,
definitely come along. Still got to message all those people, but definitely try and get a spot there if you're keen to come to the finals. The finals themselves will be on the 20th of November, once again at Battle Stations in Toowoomba, just because I'm lazy and it's the closest game store to me. And that will just be limited to the top 8. So we've got a whole heap of additional prizes for them as well. Um, the only other big news that I have is I've managed to get a local commission painter on board. So they will be doing some of the final work for the army that we're giving away as part of the Gauntlet series. So one lucky person is getting a fully painted 2,000 point army that is relatively competitive. It's not top tier, but I reckon it's a solid 2-1 list. Keen to see what someone can do with it, and it should be looking pretty schmick. Like, my painting's not amazing, so getting a commission painter in to just put that final touch and just take it up a couple of notches is definitely a big deal to me. But before we finish off, Tim, is there any other shout outs that you wanted to make?
shout out to the Simple Math guys, really the gaming group I'm a part of, and the crew down at IF Burley, uh, keeping the games going, which is really good.
Cool. I also want to shout out the guys down at Burley for letting me host the last round of the Gauntlet there. That's awesome. And apart from that, just shouting out all the guys who walked away with awards at the last Gauntlet as well. Everyone who got an award definitely deserved it. There was some beautifully painted armies, some absolute top-notch people, and some very intense games as well. So you all definitely deserve the awards that you got. But apart from that, I'll be hopefully seeing a lot of you guys on the 16th of October at round 10. So until next time, bye.